All right, welcome back. More Dump and Change. We'll shift our focus to the Scotties. Jill Shumay, a little bit of a surprise, 4-1 to start her Scotties career. What's been working for her, boys?
You know what? Curling is a unique sport. It's just like golf. You kind of get on a roll, and I think she's getting effort from everybody on her rink. At the same time, she's had a bit of a light schedule to start with. She hasn't played against the big teams at that Scotties, so we'll see as the week unfolds how her record is.
Yeah, I think the scheduling helps them a lot, especially a first-time Scotties rink. You know, you want to get that first win under your belt. They kind of got that. They kept rolling. Really no expectations. They were ranked 7th in Saskatchewan going into the provincials, so they kind of had no expectations. They didn't know how they were going to fare, but good thing they did pick up those wins, I think, because they got teams like BC and Ontario and Manitoba and Team Canada, the 4 teams that are right at the top as well. They haven't played any of them, so hopefully they can string a few more together.
Yeah, something else that's kind of caught my eye too. None of them are, like, they're curling good, but no one's higher than 80%. So not bringing their best of game yet. So what's going to happen when they play those Canadas or Manitobas, Ontarios? They're obviously going to have to bring it because 70% is not going to cut it.
No, when you're playing against some of the top curlers in the country there, and you're playing against the defending champions, you're playing against Jones out of Manitoba, who's always very strong. Yeah. It's if they don't come with at least 80%, it's going to be lights out.
Yeah, it looks like they kind of have 2 teams left that are weaker with Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, so those should be wins, I guess you could say. That gives them 6. Normally you have to get 7 to make the playoffs, so that means they got to beat Kelly Scott or Jennifer Jones or Heather Nedwin, which they're going to have to, like you said, they're going to have to bring those numbers up and get maybe a little bit lucky. Who knows? Yeah.
Now, talking about the rest of the Scotties, we've got 3 teams that are 5-0, Canada, Ontario, and Manitoba. So we kind of seeing how the playoffs are going to shape off now. Maybe there's going to be a tiebreaker with Saskatchewan, possibly BC and New Brunswick, who are also doing very well this year. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, you always expect the usual suspects, like you look at Jones and you look at the defending champions. They're always going to be there at the end, and you're going to see how it separates. Right now we're sitting on Tuesday. You're going to see that separation probably tomorrow and Thursday for sure as we go into the weekend.
Yeah, and a team for me that looks really good is the hometown Ontario team. They've been there like the past 2 years, and they were a little bit young and they were a little bit immature, they were saying, but they've kind of
and they haven't lost all year. No. They're 28 or 29-0.
Didn't lose to provincials, didn't lose at the Scotties. They look good with the hometown crowd, and you got to like Team Canada coming back and Jennifer Jones as well. It's going to be, I think, Saskatchewan and BC going for that 4th playoff spot.
And curling's so much about confidence too, and all your members of your rank, if they're playing with confidence and they have a lot of hard shots coming up, they have the confidence to pull off those shots. And confidence not only in their own abilities, but confidence in the ice they're playing on, because the ice is a huge part of the game.
Now, do you like what they've done with the schedule? Usually they only have 2 draws on the first day, and then you play 2 games every day. They kind of did a little different this year. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's only 2 draws a day. Do we like that?
You kind of wonder. I think the curlers are going to like that. I think you're more for the TV audience. I know TSN's there, and they're doing games pretty well all the time. Yeah. You're wondering what their audience is for a morning game. You're wondering what their audience is for an afternoon game. So I think more than anything, this is a TV-oriented sport, and they want to get it more market value out of it.
Yeah, and if you go to the Scotties or the Brier and you go in the middle of the week, if you go to the morning draw, there's usually not a whole lot of people in the stands either, because people are working through the week and they can't usually make it to the morning game. So I think it'll help to just have the 2.
All right, we'll shift our attention to the CFL now. CFL signings, free agencies were last week. The Riders kind of made some noise signing Dwight Anderson, Tyrone Brackenridge, just to name a couple. Do we like what the Riders did, or could they might have done a little bit more?
Well, I think Brackenridge was huge to sign because he led the team defensively last year in tackles and really was a huge part of their defense. So I think that was huge. And I think with Anderson, it's a little bit iffy since he had the eye-poking incident with Dressler in week 4. But I think you get over that as a Rough Rider, and he becomes a teammate pretty fast once you realize they do need that help in the secondary pretty bad.
Yeah, and they need the help desperately in the defensive secondary. You look back to that game in Calgary and don't even want to think about it. But their defensive secondary is weak. Their defensive secondary doesn't really have a swagger at all. I think Anderson brings a bit of cockiness, brings a little bit of swagger. Yeah. Maybe they need that in the defensive secondary. Brackenridge is a huge signing. I think Willis, you lose him to Edmonton. you know what, I don't think it's a big loss. I think they've got some boys that can step up and take over his position. And I think Willis was a guy that, yeah, he did have a few good games, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of games that you couldn't find him on the field.
I think you hope that even their defensive line without Willis, it looks a little weak in places, but I think you hope you find like a diamond in the rough like they found with John Chick a few years back stepping in, and now he's in the NFL. You hope that somebody kind of rises up and can help out that defensive line as well, because it's not the best in the league either.
Okay, now for the Eskimos, they did sign Odell Willis, which could help for the Eskimos, but was that enough for them, or did they need to kind of shift their attention to a different position?
Well, you think their offense, for example. I think defense are probably one of the best defenses in the league, and that's the reason why they got as far as they did last year. But their offense, quarterback, running back, you look at, there's a lot of questions on their offensive side of the ball, and I don't think they've addressed it yet.
Yeah, Fred Stamps can't really do it.
I do like the fact that they got Mike Riley from BC.
Yeah.
As he was BC's backup, he's a guy who wanted a chance as a starter. I think Edmonton's the perfect place because last year they had Kerry Joseph, Stephen Giles, and Matt Nichols was his name, right? So they had those three guys who all started games. You give a guy like Riley a chance to be the number one guy, and you never know what he can do.
The only thing is he's unproven again. I know they had Stephen Giles, who was proven to be bad, and then Kerry Joseph proven to be too old.
Yes.
So you're wondering, and Nichols, breaking his leg in about 3 different places there in Toronto, you wonder how he's going to bounce back.
You hope that for Eskimo fans that Riley can step it up and Hugh Charles can kind of keep it going because he had a pretty good year for the Eskimos as well. But they could be a team to beat, I think.
Okay, now we'll talk a little baseball now. The Toronto Blue Jays, everyone opened up spring training. The bats look good. The pitching looks good. The whole team really looks good. But the starting pitching, R.A. Dickey is going to get the opening start. But the rest of the rotation, how do you think it's going to pan out?
I think it's one of the better rotations in the league, honestly, because you look at who they have. They also have Morrow, who was fantastic for them last year. You throw in Mark Burley, who doesn't throw hard, but he can
Good
throw
lefty.
with accuracy. He's thrown no-hitters before. You throw in Josh Johnson, who they got, and then your 5 guys, Ricky Romero, who was their ace last year. Anytime you can take your ace into the number 5 spot, he had a bad year, but the pressure's off Ricky Romero. He's got to throw 6 innings a game and be accurate, and he can be an effective number 5 guy for sure.
I don't want to sound too negative, but the starting rotation will be one of the best in baseball, but at the same time, I don't like their middle relief. I don't like their closers right now. So you still have your bullpen to worry about. They're not bad, but they're not anything like their starting rotation.
You hope that those guys can throw 7 innings a night, and then you don't have to worry about the long relief. That's kind of the hope, I think.
Well, they have Casey Janssen as the closer for now. Do you think that will continue down the season, or do you think it'll just kind of be another typical Blue Jays season where they name a closer and he just falls apart?
I hope not. You like to see the Jays do something this season. Or do they go out and try to find a closer out there? And I think more than anything, they may try to find a closer. See how it goes off the start of the season. If he's not doing the job, then go out and find one.
It was kind of a weird interview I saw where they were talking about Jansen and how he's not quite healthy, and they said he's going to be the closer, and then they said, but we also have Sergio Santos, or I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was the closer last year. He got hurt right away, only threw a couple games. Now they're saying we do have him for backup, which is kind of iffy when you don't have that set-in-stone guy.
All right, boys, perfect. That's all the time we have for Dump and Change. When we come back, a little over-under for you guys coming up.